This is going to be the first video out of 3 where I show you different techniques for decorating a cake. This first one is going to be how to level, stack, and frost your cake and get those really beautiful smooth sides that everyone is after lately. And the next 2 videos are going to showcase very specific decorating styles. They're all going to be really beginner friendly, so if you're just getting into the world of cake decorating or you just want to try this at home for your quarantine hobby, it's going to be really user friendly, beginner friendly, and you are going to be able to do all of this right at home. Okay, so the first thing to make your cake, your finished cake, look really perfect is leveling your cake layers. So I have 2 cake layers in front of me. I just made a fun vanilla funfetti cake. Really you can use any box cake mix that you find, or you can look up your own recipe. Most box mixes are going to make 2 8-inch cakes. Mine here are 2 6-inch cakes. Doesn't really matter what size your cakes are, but at the end of the day you want to make sure that your cake layers are even. So in order to do that, I have my layers out. They're on a cutting board so that I can protect my surface, and I'm going to be using a serrated knife. To level these cake layers, you are just going to take your serrated knife and hold it parallel to your surface. This cake right here is about 1 inch tall and it came out very even, so I don't even have to touch it. This one I want to even out a little bit because, as you can see, the top isn't perfectly even and it's a little bit taller than this one, and I want to make sure that they're even so that when my cake is done it's not all wobbly and slanted. So like I said, I'm holding my knife right flat parallel to my surface, and I am just going to start moving back and forth. To the other side. Pull that top off, and now you have a snack for later. And I'm just gonna check to see. I like that height a lot better. I think I actually want to take a tiny bit more off from just this half. Now that looks pretty good. So both of my cake layers are nice and even now, and you are ready to go to the next step. Now we're going to get into stacking the cake and actually frosting it. Before you get started, you need to make sure that you have the right tools. So basically you're just going to get whatever surface you plan to serve the cake on, and that is what you're going to use to build the rest of your cake. I like to use cake boards. They're just little circles of cardboard. You honestly could take any box you have lying around and cut it into a circle. You want to make sure that it's at least 2 inches bigger than your actual cake layers. So I said that earlier that I have 6-inch cake layers, so I could use an 8-inch circle. This one is actually 10 inches, so it's nice and big. I have a lot of space to work with. So get whatever surface you want to build your cake on first, and that's where you start. I'm also going to be using something called a turntable. It just spins like this, and it makes it easier for me to do all of my decorating. If you don't have a turntable at home, it's okay. You can just rotate whatever surface you're using to serve your cake on to do the decorating. So you need those 2 components to get started. The other 2 things that are really important for getting your cake started to be stacked and frosted, the first is an offset spatula. This is the most important thing that you're going to need. This is something that I do recommend finding to decorate your cakes with. It works a lot better than just any kind of knife or rubber spatula that you would have at home because it has these straight edges to it. So you do need one of these. So the other tool that I use, you don't necessarily need it, but it does make your life a whole lot easier, is this. And this is called a bench scraper. I got this for like $9 at a craft store, so if you do want to kind of like take your cake decorating to the next level, you can go and grab one of these. You'll see how I use it. It's going to be used to smooth out the frosting, and I do think that it helps a lot. So the last thing you're going to need is, of course, your frosting. I have my bowl here, and really any frosting works. You can actually buy pre-made frosting at the store, or again, you can just use whatever recipe you find. So I have my whole bowl here ready to go. The first thing that I'm gonna do is take a little dab of frosting and I'm gonna put it right in the center of my cake board, and that's gonna kind of act like a little bit of a glue to actually hold my cake layers on the board. So I'm going to take my first cake layer and I'm going to put it right in the center, right on that dab. Press it in a little bit, and that is just how you get the first layer down. Now you just get to fill in the middle of the cake. So I'm gonna use that offset spatula, get a nice mound of frosting, put it in the very center of the cake. I'm just gonna spread it around. It's hard to kind of see if the center is even just as you fill it in, but just make sure that you have enough. Some people like a lot of frosting between their layers. I'm somebody who doesn't like to cake it on too thick. Okay, so that's the center. And now I'm just going to take my second layer of cake and I'm going to set it right on top. You do want to make sure that it is centered, because again, we don't want the cake to be leaning. That's why we made it all nice and even. So you want to make sure that it is centered so that when you get to the top of the cake, it's not leaning all in one direction. So this is now going to take us into one of the most important steps when you're trying to get a really nice smooth top and sides when you're frosting a cake. You want to do what's called a crumb coat. So the crumb coat is just kind of exactly like it sounds. It's a very thin layer of frosting that locks in and traps all of the crumbs that will come off of the cake. As my layers are kind of heating up because it's like 90 degrees here, there are going to be more crumbs. So this crumb coat is going to help lock all of them in and trap them in so that the outside layer of frosting is going to be perfectly smooth and there will be no crumbs in it. So to start, I'm going to use my offset spatula, get a nice clump on top. I like to start off with a pretty decent amount on the top and then smooth it over to the sides, but you could start on the sides if you wanted. So if I'm pushing the frosting all the way to the edges, as you can see, you can start to kind of see through the cake a little bit. That's because I am trying to get it all onto the sides. And I'm just going to keep kind of spinning my cake around on this board. That's why this turntable really makes it easier to do these types of things. If you don't have it though, you can just spin your board around. As you can see, it looks a little funky, and that's why we do this crumb coat, because now none of these crumbs will show up in the outer layer of our frosting. This is when I do start using the bench scraper. If you don't get a bench scraper, you can just continue using the offset spatula and kind of run it along the side like this to get your frosting nice and smooth. I like to use the bench scraper because it's easier to hold and you get a really smooth finish with this. So what I'm going to do is hold it vertically and touch it very lightly to the cake. It's not at a right angle to the cake. It's about 45 degrees. And I'm just gonna hold it lightly to the cake and I'm going to turn on my turntable in a smooth motion. I'm gonna try to get as far around the cake as I can. Stop there. Now it's really important, don't go back on the cake with all of this frosting on the bench scraper. All you do is scrape it off and put it back on the edge of the bowl. Now the last step is we want this top part to be nice and smooth. So you go back to your offset spatula and all you do is pull the corner towards you so that this edge ends up being nice and crisp. And again, it does not have to be perfect yet. We still have one more step, but this way it's as smooth as possible before you go to your next step. Okay, now for the last step before you actually put the rest of the frosting on your cake, and one of the most important steps, you're actually going to stick this in the freezer or fridge. If you're using the freezer, put it in for about 5 minutes. If you only have a flat space in your fridge, I'd say about 10 minutes. And this is going to firm up this layer of frosting and really lock in all of those crumbs. So I have gotten my cake out of the freezer. I was in there for about 5 minutes and it's just firm to the touch now. So when I touch the frosting, it doesn't move or really do anything, and that's what you want. You want to be careful not to leave it in for too long because it will get some condensation on it from the temperature difference with the air now. Cake decorating in the summer is hard, so make sure it was just about 5 minutes and that it's just firm to the touch. So now we are going to put our final coat of frosting on our cake. And we are going to use the same tools that we used before, the offset spatula just to scoop onto the cake and smooth around, and then my bench scraper. Again, if you don't have one, this offset spatula is going to be your best friend. Like I did before with the crumb coat, I'm just going to get a nice big glob of frosting. That is the technical term, glob. On the top of the cake, and then I'm gonna smooth it over so that it comes over the sides. I've gone all the way around the cake at least once and you're noticing some flaws. So some of my crumbs are coming through over here, which means I need a thicker coat of frosting. And down here, there is a little bit of a bubble down here as well. That means that the coating of frosting isn't even. So all you're gonna do is go back and get a little more frosting. Oops, and fill that side in. Okay, so once you've gotten the sides as smooth as you want to get them, you are going to go to this top part because obviously this top is still not completely done. So you're going to use the same method as before with the crumb coat. You're just going to take your offset spatula and pull towards you. You may find that the warmer your frosting is, the harder it is to get it smooth, which is something that I am experiencing right now. With the warm temperature, you might need to take breaks, actually put your cake in the fridge or the freezer for just a few minutes, and then go back to get your sides nice and smooth. Now you have your cake with nice smooth sides, you are ready to go on to your next step, which is decorating. There are going to be 2 more episodes that teach you the basics of how to make your cake that's nice and simple to make it really beautiful. So make sure you check out the next 2 videos. So thank you so much for watching. If you liked what you see and you want to check out some of the other things that I do, I'm on Instagram at Dolce del Rosso, and you can see all my finished cakes there. So definitely check it out.